Have you been thrust into a position of trying to sell remotely, attempting to connect with, prospect, follow up, and close your buyers all virtually without seeing them face to face? Make sure you click that subscribe button for more proven sales strategies, and you can click the bell to be notified when our next new video is released. Hi, I'm Shawn Casemore, and I've been studying the habits of top performing sales professionals for nearly 20 years. I in fact started in sales at the ripe age of 11, but we'll save that for another time. For many, moving from a face-to-face selling environment to a remote selling environment or virtual selling environment has been a challenge. You know, it's not about moving your slide deck presentation onto Zoom. It's more than that. We have to learn how to do all of the activities that we once did in a face-to-face environment in a remote environment, doing it virtually. And that, of course, for many is a change. Now, you might be watching this video thinking, well, Shawn, it's been about a year or so, I'm now a master at this, but I found it's very different for many of my clients. Because you see, it's not about what you're doing in order to try and sell virtually, it's how you do it. It's what's behind that. Now, what I want to talk about today are some of the proven strategies that will ensure you're effective. So stay tuned and let's get right to it. First off, one of the most important things you need to do if you want to sell remotely is to have a distraction-free environment. Let me say that again, distraction-free environment. Now, depending on where you are at in your life, you may have kids at home, you may not. You may be living alone, you may have multiple pets. It really doesn't matter. The point is, if you have an environment where people can walk into the room while you're on a call, right? Ask you a question while you're doing a virtual presentation, maybe even have the doorbell ringing when you're in the middle of a discussion, just like we might be doing right now, those things tend to not only distract you, but they distract your buyer, and you don't want to have that happen. You see, in a face-to-face environment, we often would go and see the buyer face-to-face to try and ensure that we have our full attention focused on them in that very moment. We can be in the conversation. Well, if you have distractions behind you or happening around you, it'll be very difficult for you to pay attention to what the buyer is saying, how they're responding to your questions, and in turn, it'll be challenging for you to respond appropriately. So step one, to be effective as a remote salesperson, you want to make sure the environment you set yourself up in is distraction-free. So lock the door, disconnect the doorbell, or put a sign on it asking people that not to ring it. I used to have a friend of mine that worked shift work, and he put a note right over top of the doorbell that said, I'm a shift worker, do not ring this bell between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. If you do, I won't be very happy. And guess what? Nobody rang the doorbell. So set yourself up for success with a distraction-free environment. The second tip in order to be successful selling remotely is to make your schedule work for you. Now, here's what I mean by that. Obviously, how you did things before you began working remotely are very different than when you are working remotely. We've touched on that a little bit in the previous point, but here's what I mean. You can't simply take how you used to run your day-to-day or your week-to-week and just implant it into working remotely. It doesn't happen that way, right? You can actually get started sometimes at work a little bit earlier in the morning because you don't have the commute to take care of. All right? Your lunchtime may not be as long because you don't have to go anywhere to have lunch. You literally might just walk up to your kitchen, which is only a couple minutes away, and an hour might seem like way too much time to have lunch. I know it does for me. So make sure you set up your schedule so that it works for you in this new remote environment. Here's an example. I find that when I'm working remotely, I prefer to make my calls between 10 and 12. Now, if I'm on the road traveling, I'll be more flexible, right? I might take a day where I can't make any calls, I'm tied up speaking, but the very next day I might double up on those calls and I might take them whenever I can. But when I'm in my office working remotely, I like to make them between 10 and 12. It's just a personal preference. So I make sure the time spent pre 10 a.m. is preparing for the calls, taking care of any coaching follow-ups from the day prior, and then after 12, when my calls are done, then I schedule in the follow-ups and other administrative tasks that need to be taken care of. So you see how this works. It's setting up a schedule that works for you in this new environment. So take your first week or two and test some things. Try some different activities at different times of the day to figure out what works for you. And then obviously you want to align those with your prospect. I know that my buyers are available between 10 and 12, but they're also available at the end of the day. So if I really have to make a call, I could make it then. It's not my preference though. So make sure you set up your schedule to work for you. Hey, if you're enjoying these tips on how to sell remotely, make sure you click the subscribe button to have access to more proven sales strategies to be successful and to sell more in today's environment. And click that little bell in the corner, because then you'll be notified each and every time I release a new video. Selling remotely is more than just moving your presentation online. Right? It's about finding ways to connect and reach out to prospects when you can't just drop by, knock on their door, or run into them at a networking event. So when you're working remotely, you have to be strategic in your outreach. That's my third point. Be strategic. Now, what does that mean? A lot of the sales professionals that I meet, that I coach, that I do training with, they tend to believe that outreach means, if you're in a remote environment, you have to become an expert in social media. And that is 100% false. That's not true. Now, having some skills makes sense, but the real question you have to ask yourself strategically is, where are my buyers spending time? Where do they prefer to communicate? Let me give you an example. When I did quite a bit of work back about a year and a half, 2 years ago, close to 2 years ago now, on the ground in Mexico, I was working with a company expanding their business in Mexico, coaching their folks right in the field. And what we found, and if you're from Mexico, you know this already, what we found is that most people prefer to use WhatsApp. So if you could get somebody's WhatsApp number, which is typically their cell number, but sometimes it's otherwise, you have a direct line to them. And they would answer that way more often, much faster than they ever would answer a telephone, email, any other form. So you have to ask yourself, how do my prospects prefer to engage? How do they prefer to communicate? And that's really going to depend on your prospect, their demographic, their age, etc. So identify where they spend their time and how they prefer to engage, and then that's where you spend your time. If they're not using Facebook, you don't need to use Facebook. Right? If they seem to all be on Twitter and communicating on Twitter, then test that, see how it goes. If you're not sure where to start, simply ask some of your current customers, hey, now that we're working remotely, how do you tend to engage with sales professionals? Right? How would you prefer they engage you? Your best customers will give you an answer, and that's the best place to start. You know, if you want to sell remotely, as I've alluded to throughout this video, you want to make sure you keep yourself organized. You're clear on what your objectives are on a day-to-day basis. And it's for that reason I created what I call the 30-day sales action planner. It's a simple planner, a PDF file that you can use to track your weekly and daily sales objectives and goals, how you did, and measure your performance. So if you look in the description below, there's a link that you can click, you can get it for free, download it, and it's going to help you be a successful remote salesperson. All right, make sure you click that subscribe button to stay up to date on all these sales strategies that I'm releasing each and every week. And if you click the bell, you'll even be notified when the video is released. Now, if you want to sell remotely and be successful, you'll need some fundamental skills. Make sure you check out this video next to ensure that you've got those skills in place to build upon as a successful remote salesperson.